controversial subjects with the facts can be tense. But we are A$AP Science here to make things make sense.
Oh, you want a sip of tea there, bruv?
Yes, please.
Please, sir, I want some more.
Yes, let me put on a British accent. No, I can't. I
No, do it.
I actually haven't practiced for the pod.
Oi, sir.
My name's Mitchell, and there's lots of different accents. Watch me, oh Kobe, watch Sorrel. That's what I was taught when I was in Oliver with the production of people who came from. I guess
Yeah,
it's mixed.
honestly, weren't you in
Came from
Oliver?
England.
Shouldn't you have know all the British accents of them?
Yes, but I was very young when I was in a production of Oliver Twist.
Oliver.
And all the adults were from England. And okay, I'm so sorry. This is botched
No.
because I have spent more of my adult life trying to nail the Australian accent.
Yeah.
But recently watching a lot of South African Survivors, so they're just kind of all melding in my head.
You started a little Aussie off the top.
Like. Oh, I learned something today that was the phrase "shrimp on the Barbie."
Yeah,
You know, like
yeah.
some shrimp. That actually was a marketing. It's considered one of the most successful marketing plays because Australians do not actually say it apparently, and it's like was part of some food campaign,
Like bubblegum shrimp or something?
something like that. That is like internationally known, but people are like, no one says that in Australia.
Yeah, it was probably an ad in America where they had an Australian be like, shrimp on the barbie. And then we show up there and they're like, stop talking like that. What are you talking about?
But we're not here today to talk about Australia. We are here.
The monarchy.
Oh, true. Oh, fair.
Commonwealth
the monarchy.
country.
But ultimately, British royalty is where we're chatting, right?
Okay, so we watched the Meghan Harry interview.
Mostly on TikTok.
Mostly
to
on
be
TikTok.
honest.
Actually, when I was watching it, I was like, yawn. Sorry. I'm falling asleep. This is clearly no one's going to care about this. This is a snooze. The next day, it's like, oh my God, everyone cares about this. I was surprised, to be honest.
Like we have lots of interesting science and stuff to talk about today. I will say up front, I am obviously, and I don't think Greg is either, the foremost expert in the monarchy. Like I'm not that engaged. I don't really care about the royal family. I don't really know that much about them. Do you?
No. Like,
But we're going to give our opinions either way. But I know
Yeah.
there'll be people who truly obsess over it and know every little detail
and
of
if
the
you do, I would
relationship.
just say, oh no, maybe you should investigate that. Take a little close look at that and sort of think,
like,
why?
why
You know,
is
why am I
that?
interested in like the colonizers of the world? Just think about it. So, okay, my parents are like hippie, like definitely like, I hate Doug Ford, but I remember they used to take me to like protests of the conservative government because they like were like anti-education as I was younger. So they always instilled in me this kind of like anti-establishment energy. And so I remember when I was a kid, like Christmas would come and they'd be like, oh, well, let's, go watch the Queen's address. And I would be like, are you kidding? Like on Christmas, we're going to go watch the Queen be like, oh, it's been a year of peace or whatever. And I was like, my body was like, this is wrong. Like, why are we watching this like, leader? Like, where did your anti-establishment go when all of a sudden we're pro-Britain? It's like, read a book. So I got mad and I was like, one morning I was like, Mom, Dad, I was like 11. I was like, I'm an anti-monarchist. And they were just like, oh, give me a break. You know what I mean? They're like,
Yeah.
okay, whatever.
Like you understand
yeah.
it.
And so I remember like, I think I read anti-monarchist. So like I read a little bit quickly about like what that meant. And it was just like, I guess you can look at anti-monarchists exist in the UK or like whatever. So then, and my parents were like, they'd be like, well, something to think about. All the tourism money that London's getting from the Queen. Got to think about that before you become anti. Like they hit me with facts that I was just like, okay, I actually don't really know what I'm talking about. So then once we were sitting around this big dinner with like their friends and like their friends' kids, and I was just like, when you're like feeling left out of a conversation, like they were being really smart talking about things, and they were kind of just like I wasn't feeling
Intellectual,
included.
yeah.
And I want like it kind of like died down a bit, and I was like, well. I have something to say about the world. I'm like, you know what I am? And they all listen. I'm like, and I'm like kind of like grasping, like, what was it again? I'm like, I'm anti-Semitic. And I said, and my parents were like, Gregory, what? And I was like, what? Like, I hate the Queen. Like, what? And they started panicking. They're like, that's not what that means. Like, I was like young and 11, and I was like,
immediately you said the wrong word.
like the reactions, it was like people like dropping their British cutlery, like they put down their tea, like, excuse me. And I was like, oh my God. And then they were like, that is Nazis. Like, that is people who, and I was like, oh my God, because like you're 11, you're learning history. And I was like, oh my God.
I just had heard the word and thought it meant anti-monarch.
Anyways,
Oh my God.
I think I still am a little anti-monarch. anarchist, but I've learned how to say it properly.
Good.
That's
yeah,
my
it's about
story.
time. It's about time. No, that's fair. That's like, I mean, yeah, I've had those moments as a kid growing up where you just say the wrong word. You're just so confident. I remember once I read a book about planets and felt so inspired and empowered, but I kind of remember lying to my dad because I was like, it obviously explained where Saturn's rings came from, but I fully thought it meant, like, you know, when you see a drawing of planets and you see the rings that represent their orbits? I thought those were real
yes,
things.
yeah.
So I remember explaining like, and so the rings, Dad,
that they're
come
like
from this.
on their orbits.
Yeah, and he was like, I think it maybe like I think he was like, I think it means Saturn. I was like, no, Dad, like the rings that all the planets follow. And I just remember then later being like, I'm so stupid. Like I was so embarrassed, but to myself that I had like so proudly professed that, and then went back to the book and was like, I am an idiot.
That's a very interesting thing. We should probably do an episode on the planet's rings. Because I really think that is like fascinating, like cognitive dissonance that a lot of people probably still like are like, where's Saturn's rings from? They're like, I don't know the orbits. Like people would panic to that. That's good. Okay,
Where do we begin?
I want to begin with the fact that they're inbred.
Oh, okay. You want to jump right into that? Okay.
I do because there's a lot of fascinating biology here that I think that like listeners will love, and they're about to learn something really, grade 11 integral biology.
Okay, yes, let's talk about inbreeding.
Okay, so yeah, you look at them and you think, okay, like I don't know, like they're like, I mean, Harry, it's like, okay, you're hot, you're looking good, but all the other ones, a little, okay, things are off. I wouldn't say they're the most attractive bunch.
Okay,
that doesn't have anything to do with necessarily what I'm going to talk about, but who knows what the inbreeding's done for that sense. But okay, so I'm going to explain today how hemophilia proliferated in the royal family, and actually how inbreeding and some other aspects made hemophilia spread through other royalty across Europe because of Queen Victoria.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So like from the British royal line.
Literally Queen Victoria. I've been reading a lot about her this week. Okay.
Girl, you in trouble.
Okay, so let's start with hemophilia. So hemophilia is a disease where your blood does not clot properly. Okay. So it's like you bleed out when you get cut, especially from the time when this was really bad in like the early 1800s or late 1800s when they're like, oh shit, you're bleeding. Oh, you die. You know what I mean? It's like now it's like not as big a deal, but it's a recessive sex-linked X chromosome disorder. Okay. So that's probably giving you that biology. Like,
yeah, I'm starting to see Punnett squares.
You got the Punnett squares, and it's too bad this is a visual medium, or I would be drawing squares, my friend, on a whiteboard. I love a Punnett square. So it's a non-dominant,
right?
X-linked recessive. That's what that means. Non-dominant disorder. So what that means is that because it's on the X chromosome, you could be a woman who is a carrier for hemophilia, but have normal blood clotting because you only have one X chromosome that has the trait.
And since it's non-dominant, your dominant version that is quote unquote the normal functioning
has taken over.
Yeah. Okay.
That's Queen Victoria. So she does not
she has
have
no idea that she
does not realize that she has hemophilia. Okay. But the thing is, if you have sons,
you're only passing one of those X's to them.
So like men in this world, I mean, there's a lot of fascinating. We've done videos about like gender and sex that you can watch because it's not black and white, but for this case, we will say it. You have an X and a Y chromosome, so you get the X from your mom. So Queen Victoria, for example, she has the trait. When she has a son, there's a chance that she passes on the one. He gets the Y from his dad. And now, boom, he has hemophilia.
Okay. Yes. Remember this.
Okay. So it's Queen Victoria. It's 1819 is when she's born. She's the queen from 1837 till 1901.
1837 to 1901.
It's a long time.
It is, but isn't Queen Elizabeth now the longest?
Yes, and sis, she swung in their tea, honey, and kicked out this Queen Victoria's reign. So now the current queen's longer than this one.
I am not a hemophiliac.
And I'm not a hemophiliac. That dirty hemophiliac, my great grandmother. So she married her cousin, Queen Victoria. Yeah.
Okay,
Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha.
Wow, it's so wild to think even 200 years ago that's just normal.
I know. It doesn't seem like that long now that I'm marrying cousins. That's the weird thing with the monarchy. It's like, ew, gross.
They choose to keep it in the family often because it like preserves their lineage.
And it's like, hun, your chins are off. But okay, so they all thought it's like the inbreeding that caused this, but what they actually think now is that Queen Victoria's father was 51 years old, and as we now know, older men
sperm could be
their sperm is like gross, and like gross is the wrong word, but like they're full of really bad sperm, and they think it was an actual random mutation within Queen Victoria that the hemophilia started.
Oh, like she may not have actually carried the gene, but there was a mutation.
Because of her dad's old spunk.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
their
okay.
dirty
it
royal
started with
spunk.
her. So then she did have it.
Yeah,
like
she
the
did.
recessive.
Yeah,
gene.
she had the recessive, but they think it started randomly because of her
I see.
dad's dirty royal spunk.
Okay, say it one more time.
Okay, so she now has the trait. She marries her cousin. She has a bunch of kids. Okay.
And let's point out also, if it's the cousin, it's more likely it's in the family.
Exactly. So that's the thing. Like people were like, they're inbreeding. They now think it's not, but it's like because of all this inbreeding is how something like
Increase
hemophilia
the
proliferates.
likelihood, yeah.
Because then now all of a sudden you have a dad that might literally have hemophilia, but they like didn't really know at the time, and then a mom who's a carrier, and all of a sudden you could have a daughter who has it because she has 2XX. You know what I mean? If the dad has it.
Yep, I see.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and the son is going to get it no matter what.
And so, yeah, okay, wow.
Wow, it's like inbreeding. Don't do it. Okay, listen. Hot take on side note, listeners. I'm just trying to tell you something really important. Which is, if you're thinking of inbreeding, don't do it. So, her son Prince Leopold ends up having hemophilia and ends up actually having kids. Okay. So passes it on, of course, to his daughter, who becomes a carrier because he like has to.
Right.
Because
That means she has to be a carrier, at the very least, or have it.
And then
although his sons would not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Get it. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, you got. Okay, yeah, that's good.
Oh
Like,
my
that's
God, I get
That's
it.
the science I want people to take away. You know what I mean? Like XX and XY. So you're right. Like you got it. So Queen Victoria's daughter, Princess Beatrice, was a carrier, and she passed it on to 2 of her sons. And she also had a daughter who was a carrier, and that carrier took it to Spain.
Okay.
So the daughter of Queen Victoria, Beatrice,
like went off.
took it to Spain, the Spain royals. And then her daughter, Princess Alice, took it to Prussia and to Russia.
Okay.
So her daughters, Alice's daughters, were carriers, and then they married people in Prussia, gave it to lots of boys there, lots of women there.
Okay.
Prussia, I realized, is actually kind of like modern day Germany. I always thought it was Russia. And then
put a P in front of that and called it a day.
And then finally, I just want to say the Spanish Habsburgs, doing all this research, they had the Habsburg jaw. That's Spanish royalty who were very inbred, and they actually had messed up jaws. Like, you know, when
it's because of the inbreeding?
Yeah, you know, when you
I
see
don't
like
know.
royal paintings
sometimes,
and like olden day paintings, are like, those faces are mess. And now they're like, well, maybe it wasn't a bad painter. It's like they all were just like inbred.
Oh, no.
Anyway, so Queen Victoria
was kind of like the impetus for much of its spreading, maybe?
Of hemophilia spreading
Wow.
amongst royals, which is kind of a little schadenfreude. It's a little bit of punching up to think about how all these people
yes.
were
Now,
sick.
let's say like some people have hemophilia who are not the result of inbreeding.
No.
So it's like in this family,
Yeah,
obviously. That's
but it's in their past. You know, they have inbreeding and they have a X-linked recessive disease in their past.
That's so interesting. What was I going to say? Oh, one thing that makes me laugh sometimes is realizing, though, that inbreeding, like, okay, come along with me for a minute. It's actually not as high of a likelihood. So if you think of Punnett squares, like, you have to get both recessive genes. And so it's really only like a 25% chance or something. That
It's a low. We have a video on inbreeding, and like, it's
still
a
high
pretty low
percentage.
chance that if you bang your brother or sister and have a kid, that it's actually going to be like
have to
unhealthy.
have the recessive gene, and then you both have to pass it on.
We're not saying anyone should inbreed.
No,
It's
which
disgusting
is a much
for a
higher,
reason.
and there's a much higher chance.
Yes, but
Like,
it's not
still, like,
100%.
Even if it's 25%, that's still higher than
Yes,
so
yeah,
many
yeah.
risk factors.
But I always thought that if you were inbred,
like
you would
100%.
100% have issues. But it's like, no, like it could be normal. And it was kind of like, oh, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, from the outside in, before I really understood the science, I think it's hard to understand what is happening. So you just assume, the act of something with the genetics messes up. But it is like, it depends on many factors, actually. So
I like that. Stay with me on this ride. Inbreeding's
you know,
not as
we're
bad
just
as you think.
representing all voices here. If you are inbred, it's okay.
Yeah, honestly,
it does not mean you necessarily
it's a
have
safe space.
genetic deficiencies.
But it was fascinating when I found that out at the end of our video research. I was like, wait, okay, cool.
I wonder when royalty, like not just the British monarchy, but monarchies around the globe, because I think a lot of them were inbred because they wanted to keep it in the family.
Yeah.
I wonder at what stage they realized or knew. Like surely before the science even, they would realize it's a very
Like a bad
A lot of
idea.
people in our families are compared to.
I just
the
picture
regular
them
population.
drinking like mead, like honey,
They were like, okay,
fermented
it's that.
honey. Or you know what I mean? And they were all just like sick and like in mud that I'm like, they probably couldn't figure out, wait, is it inbreeding
True.
or is it the fact that like we're disgusting?
Then I wonder when scientists and geneticists finally came about and
Yeah.
were like, oh, by the way, were they like, oh, and then they actually were like, we should probably not do this anymore.
I'm sure it
Was
went down
there-
just like that. Oh, shit. We should probably stop inbreeding. But
I
honestly,
wonder.
because science, like, if you think about Queen Victoria being like, her end of her reign was 1901. That's a long time ago. Like, the scientific, like, revolution that would have allowed her to understand this wouldn't have been around.
Yeah, and
yet.
no wonder they're still like upset at people marrying into the family. I mean, Meghan Markle or whatever. They're like, they're not used to having new blood in the family.
That is such a funny take for like
For
Meghan
hundreds
Markle
of
when they were like
years.
getting mad. She'd be like, "Hey, you guys are obviously inbred, like obsessed with inbreeding."
Like they're not
let them.
used. There's not. If it only was like in the 1900s they were realizing this, then it hasn't been that many generations. Like
Actually-
the Queen has been alive.
But we have to be honest, it's racism because
Oh,
they were
sorry,
okay
I'm
with
not-
the other one. Now I'm like, wait a second, no, we know the reason.
Sure,
It's
but
they're
no.
ignoramuses.
Even when you watch, like, so we watched The Crown, and you see even like Diana experienced the
Mm-hmm.
ostracism from them because she wasn't like high class enough, and I'm sure it
But
went
she
from,
like was. I never got that.
Oh,
when
me either.
when they showed up and they're like, I'm like, she lives in a
comes
mansion.
from-
She's like, I know in The Crown they like made it for
Us
purposes. Like
to
I know she
consume.
wasn't dressed like she was in Shakespeare when
Oh,
they
yeah.
first met. But when they first meet, it's like this like ethereal music. I'm like, she's in a mansion. Like she's
Right.
rich.
She's
She's
from a
upper class.
loaded family.
They were obsessed with being like They were obsessed with her being like, I have roommates in London. It's like, yeah, but you're still rich. Like rich people have roommates sometimes too, and they're like putting on drag as a normal person.
I wonder though. Yeah, that part I don't know enough about Diana's history. We should watch those other Diana movies, and I guess just to understand why, when she was from a rich family, she was trying. I guess maybe she was just like, I want to live a normal life.
Yeah, and then like she was like
Okay.
19. I'm like, it's also so weird because it's like everyone was like, she's so herself. I'm like, yeah, because she like the world hadn't like. She didn't know who she was yet. She was so
Yeah, true,
young.
I
Like
see.
I think there were really amazing parts about her, but when I think about how young she was, I was like, she was literally 19, being like,
That's
I don't
wild.
know. I'm just gonna do what I want.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Before I go into my tea science, the science tea,
Honey.
I'm just curious. I mean, obviously, do you have any? I'm just thinking like, so Prince Philip just died.
Prince Philip just died. Didn't even know he existed really until everyone started showing memes of him like looking like he was dead like 2 years ago.
True.
That's when I was like, who the hell is that?
Right, because he was very old. Right?
Yeah, and-
that was the other surprising thing to me. They've all, not all, but I mean, both the Queen and Prince Philip have had like a very long, healthy
Yeah.
life.
So we
Presumably.
only started watching The Crown in
Quarantine.
pandemic vibes. So it's like maybe that's what, like, you know what I mean? Now I know who Prince Philip is. I'm like, oh, he's kind of hot when he's young.
Oh, and he's well, but in the actor, the actor was hot.
True. I'm literally like, because like when I was like, oh, I kind of like would bang Prince Philip, and then they're like, oh, this guy, and then show me that photo of him in the car. I'm like, oh my god, like I didn't know
That's
that's
who
the
plays.
thing.
What's
Ah.
his name? It's just like the cute young guy who plays him. I'm thinking of the right person, right?
Yeah, I don't know
I
that.
read today in my research. However, when you research the monarchy and stuff, you come across a lot of tabloids. So I'm like, I don't actually know it's true. It's so much easier when we do something just on science because I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I can tell this is a legitimate paper. Anyway, I'm on like the Daily Mail, and they're like, Prince Philip is the least popular royal of all time.
I love how you just said the Daily Mail. You're like, I don't know if it's accurate or not, but I was on the Daily Mail and
I was giving an
it's not.
example, okay? And then I was like, oh, that's really sad. But surely it's also because
Of the Crown.
Diana.
Oh, and Diana.
I don't think if it was just today. I think it's like because of what happened with Diana, and she's so beloved. I
Yeah.
think he's like extra hated by that.
The Crown makes you not like him. Like
yeah,
he's
at
such
first,
a
at
dick.
first you don't mind him, but then his story evolves into like an
Yeah.
awful one.
But I do think like I do remember where I was when Princess Diana died. Like it was like impactful, and I think I was pretty obsessed with that story, even though it was a young age. But weirdly, as 32 turning
As
33
32.
year olds, we were a little bit too young. Like my sister's 4 years older, and she's much
Right.
more enamored.
She
like
would have
there was something
remembered
that
it,
we
yeah.
missed in that. And then since then, I've just sort of not really, obviously as a young person, my identity was anti-monarchist. Like I've not really been that into it. Like I've seen the movie, like The Queen or whatever it's called. Like I guess it's interesting, but in general, I'm just
Lots
like,
of
these
people
are
our
rich
age
people,
are
and I'm
into
just
it.
like, it's like, ew, like sell the Buckingham Palace and all become normal, and like it'll be better.
I mean, it's just the original Kardashians, you know?
yeah, that's true.
Like people
That's
are always
true.
obsessed with opulence and wealth, and I think that's what the royal family represents. And I'm sure to British people it's much more because to them many people
Yeah, they're like
revere them.
screaming as they're listening to this.
Well,
like, honestly, after they throwing my tea down, they're going off. I ain't
Well,
listening about
definitely
the tea.
lots of there are. I know British people personally. Some of which are like the monarchy's awful and so stupid and a waste of money, and then others who are like it's part of our culture and history and all this. And it's interesting that we're from Canada, a Commonwealth country that still has our head of state. As
I
the
know.
Queen.
It's like the
I don't
Queen's
get it.
still on my dang toonie. I mean, actually, is the queen on the toonie? I just picture
I
loons.
don't know which one.
I
she's
prefer
on.
the loons.
Me
but
too.
Yeah, like get queen
go
off,
Hall?
put more
I'll try.
loons.
It's weak.
Wow.
It has been. It's coming. Summer's coming up. But my
This
practice.
turns me on.
I'm gonna try solo on the podcast. It's just gonna be like.
No, do it. Gorgeous. As a birder, that is becoming even more erotic to me. Okay.
All right, let me get into the tea. Okay, so I'm fascinated by tea, but first I have a few little facts about British tea. So we
you're
know.
thinking you're being so, the British tea.
Because of the word tea, I was like, I have to be gay.
Yeah, but I'm like, it's so weird that gay people do that.
Okay, let me bring it down.
No, but I'm like, straight people might be like, what are they
Find
doing?
bitch.
You know what I mean? Like, they might be like, oh, here goes like tea for the law, honey, gossip.
I mean, at this point, everyone watches Drag Race, right?
Well, when I realized that Jake Paul fought someone this weekend, I had no idea. I think a lot of straight people like don't watch Drag Race. You know what I mean? There's a lot
but
that
they have
do.
to see it in culture, in like
Yeah.
gifs and memes, even if they don't watch it. I don't mean.
But think of
everyone.
how much straight culture you actually don't understand.
Oh,
and
that's
consume.
true.
You know
It's
what I
like,
mean? Like,
ugh, wrestling. What the? Fuck?
or that when someone recently was like, the Leafs are #1. I was like,
I was
they're
like,
playing.
Yeah, like sports are happening right
Like,
now.
hello, lock that shit down.
Okay, let me talk like
Anyways.
a story. The tea of the queen is okay. So here's just a couple facts. She loves Earl Grey. We know that, right?
Yeah, I have some of the Queen's Earl Grey downstairs.
Do you?
Petnam shorts or something like that.
She always travels with her tea kettle. That's what I read.
Okay, problem.
Do you personally, when you
Yes.
make tea,
Namaste.
do you add milk before or after making the tea?
Wow.
Because there's one way that's quintessentially British.
Okay, I do it after. Is that
After.
British?
Or rather, should I say high class British,
Okay.
is to add it after. And so the reason is
Oh.
because they used to have these really delicate China bone teacups. And
Did
so
you say China bone teacup? The way you said that was like,
bone China teacups.
no, but I
guess.
just like just little, they had these China bone teacups.
So these fancy little cups, when you pour boiling water into them, would crack and break.
Wow.
And so if you didn't have nice ones, or if you didn't want to break them, you would put your milk first. But it like was
Oh,
a
it was
sign
like
of
a
high
flex?
class if you could put your boiling water in first.
It was a flex
And
of like
then-
my
yeah.
China's so strong.
So if you couldn't afford bone china, you would pour milk into your teacup first, because the bone china, I guess, was
Ew.
actually the high
I
quality stuff.
hate, and that makes
I
me
know.
hate the royals.
I know. And also, you stir back and forth, never in a circular motion, and you never touch the sides. It's like, okay.
I hate that. I literally am like, I hate everything about this tea culture in this moment. I'm like, this is so funny. Have you ever done high tea? I've never done that.
No, and it's like we should definitely not jump to high tea. It's like tea comes from like East Asia. Like let's go experience some like tea culture
Like
in Japan.
chai
So
tea
fascinating.
out of like literally the bowls we would have in India on the street. It was
Yeah.
so fun and cool.
Or just like
and chill.
matcha tea. And like there's so many beautiful tea ceremonies that happen in like Japanese culture and Chinese culture that I'm like, why do we instantly go to high tea?
And is high tea what I think it is? Like, do you actually get your crust
you
cut
just get
off
high.
on egg salad
Yeah, also, yeah, the
sandwiches?
queen doesn't like crust, so she cuts it off.
So that's why. 'Cause
I don't
I'm like,
know if that is
no,
why, but I read
literally
that.
when you go to high tea, it's like you're telling me this is like children's lunches. It's like a salmon salad put inside like Wonder Bread with
With
the things
no
cut
crust.
off and then tea. But I've never been to high tea, so maybe people are like, that's not high tea. You doofus.
I haven't been either. I'm sure it's cute. I'm sure it's nice, but it sounds really expensive.
And it sounds just like I love the
Just
like,
pour yourself some tea at home.
yeah, and put the milk in first. Don't flex on your tea like that. Okay, continue.
Okay, let's get into a little more of the science. I'm just going to start spouting out some really amazing effects, because apparently tea is really healthy for you.
Okay.
So good for you. It was originated in China. The earliest documented case of it is the 3rd century AD.
Oh, that's a long time ago.
Long time. It's one of the most commonly consumed drinks in the world. So it lowers stress hormone cortisol. Half a cup of green tea a day seems to lower the risk of developing depression and dementia. They've done more and more research, realizing that it is at least associated with mental health, which
Okay,
is really interesting.
cool.
One of the most crazy things. Okay. So in a Korean population, they did this study on thousands of people.
Korean population.
Korean population. This was just a particular study. People who drank it regularly were 21% less likely to develop depression over their lifetime compared to
Wow.
non-drinkers, which is on par with exercising 2.5 hours a week. Like that's the same sort of
Whoa.
like drop in depression.
So I can stop
people.
exercising and just drink tea.
There you go.
There
And
we
at first
go.
I was like, this can't be real, but it was nature.com. That was like
Okay, but it was nature.com, my friends. Not nature, not nature. Nature
Not
is
the-
real.
not the nature.
He said, yeah.
The more
Wow.
legitimate nature.com, as it were. I was just like, this can't be real. But they published it, so okay, I have to trust it. Those who drank as little as 1 cup of tea per day performed better at memory and information processing tasks. Of course, now one of the things when it comes to mental health and better, like lower stress, is they don't know if it's the association of like tea is often warm and cozy and associated.
I was gonna
with
say it like
relaxing.
forces you to be present.
Yes.
And look at your
so
surroundings.
some of the studies have not been able to parse that out because they
Yeah.
are just kind of correlative.
It's hard to parse out what even that
Epidemiological
does.
studies. They're not necessarily like testing, but there are studies that I have here where they realize like the main antioxidants that they're seeing the effects from. One is called EGCG, and the other is called L-theanine.
Like bees and like BCBG, that club. Like when you said that, like, oh, ECBG is closing. We can't see those iconic rock duos.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
BCB, that really, that's so good. I don't even know if I know what I'm talking about either.
Both of those chemicals, so one is way more present in green tea, the ECGC, and then L-theanine I think is more present in black tea. But both can pass through the blood-brain barrier and seem to help with anxiety, improve memory and reaction time. So there's really cool
Say
studies.
that, you talk
Sorry,
so fast.
and they seem to help with anxiety, improved memory, and reaction time. I was just reiterating that they have done studies where they isolate that. They give people fake tea with caffeine and real tea with caffeine, and then they're mainly studying the ECGC or the L-theanine. So people
Okay.
think they're drinking tea, but it's kind of a placebo sometimes to see if they can isolate the effects of these specific antioxidants.
Okay, so like it's a net
Overall,
positive.
yes. So now I literally drank green tea today. I was like, I quit caffeine, but actually I need to go drink it.
That's like, the queen, like, I very intelligent, important woman. I definitely think I like her, even though I don't think I've ever seen her talk, except for the Queen's address, which I was protesting upstairs and didn't watch. But like, I think like, had a very long life. Who knows how much that tea impacted her? Whether her EGCG levels, her L-theanine
EGCG,
levels would be good. Like she probably drinks more tea than a lot of people.
Epigallocatechin gallate. I can't say it. Gallate. And also, do you remember when we were in Korea, people would be like, this will save your life. Remember we were in the tea when we were in like the Korean market that one time getting food. There was like these people beside us who were so cute and helping us, spoke broken English, and then we're just like, drink the tea, drink it every day. You'll be healthy for the rest of your life.
Okay, wow.
You don't remember that?
I don't remember that.
I think it's in the vlog.
Okay, that is a psycho
We have a
thing to yell
vlog of
out.
traveling to Korea.
So sincerely. Tiz, I think it's in the vlog.
Well, I would never remember something if I hadn't reinforced it with like seeing it again.
Okay, that's so funny. Okay, no, I don't remember that, but I do. I'm just gonna drag.
It was just a random man at a corner saying this to us, but I'm like, he knew.
Yeah, no, that is a beautiful moment while traveling, being like, oh my god, this tea will save me. It's probably just like normal Lipton
With
tea.
water.
like mass produced.
Hot water.
But I will say I was one of the first times I clocked Dr. Oz, which is the horrible Dr. Phil. Oz. They're both bad. So the one that's more like, I'm a doctor, Dr. Oz, was when I was in a nutrition class learning about green tea and learning about like the idiosyncrasies of certain things and how it gets like kind of overutilized, like that it will literally save your life point blank.
Fair,
and then I watched a Dr. Oz episode like on green tea, and he was saying all these things, and I realized it's a really easy, fun thing to extrapolate about, because as a viewer you're like, oh, I can do that.
It's an easy fix.
Yeah, like I can, and then
I
and
have
then
it in my cupboard. Yeah, that's
so I
true.
clocked that, but that was a much more like, you should have. I honestly am like, encourage Dr. Oz green tea, and you'll probably see crazy shit that he says. Because
I'm curious. Yeah. So to be fair, I was kind of skeptical, but a lot of this research was from 2019 even. So they're definitely, regardless of like, this isn't going to save your life, but it is generally considered like a healthy drink that is correlated with a lot of these kind of lowering risk factors for certain issues.
And I remember when I was in that nutrition class, I was drinking green tea like twice a day, because the actual science, like what you just explained, even when I was learning at like a deep level, was making me be like, wow, this is very beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
But the professor was just being like, kids, this is a fun little activity for you to go into pop culture and see how people take the science you're learning right now and extrapolate it to all these bigger places to like sell magazines and stuff.
Sell products. Like tea is an easy product to sell. And for sure there's big tea. I think it's like
there's definitely big tea.
There is. It was like billions of kilograms get created a year of tea. So there's a lot of market interest in obviously selling and probably doing studies to show that tea is healthy.
It is weird when you like look at tea or like like David's tea, how they were like, oh great, like then they like bring down that silver bin and they open it and then you look in and it's like, oh, this is bark from the tree on my street. Like cool, yeah, I'll
that's
buy.
a dandelion.
Yeah. They're like, and look, it has full dandelions and you're like, oh, is that good? Okay, I guess I'll pay more for that. Yeah. And then learning through that nutrition that's actually like less regulated, it's like that actually could be like random bark and is maybe not like that good for you. Like you know what I mean? Like,
who knows? Yeah.
Tea is like full of like so many different things.
That was I recall I have a friend who works in a lab and had once told me like tea leaves are like often they're studying like what chemicals and what do you say,
pesticides?
Like pesticides are on them, and often like dry tea leaves contain a lot of that.
So
not to say that it's necessarily at levels that's like toxic or poisonous, but it was enough for her to be like, I measured the levels and it's like it's concerning.
And sometimes I just open like a fancy tea thing that someone gave me and I'm like, this is rocks and like dirt and a branch, and I'm just like, okay, I guess I'm gonna steep it.
There are things that are branches. You got cinnamon sticks, and I'm like, that is amazing.
That is so. Oh my god, vanilla, a full vanilla bean.
Yeah.
So recently I've been trying to bake, and I went and got a full vanilla bean, and I was like, are you kidding? Am I scraping at the seeds of this gorgeous bean? And it is just full of flavor and smell.
So fascinating.
Here I am reneging everything. I'm like, give me tea that's only dirt and sticks.
That's not tea though. I actually don't know. This tea is referencing like leaves. Like so, I don't know what actually qualifies as tea. Obviously, that's still tea.
See, I'm wondering is it just the act of steeping said natural organic substance is what makes it a tea?
There might be. I think originally I think most teas come from both green and black tea come from a specific plant.
That makes sense.
Camellia sinensis.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
I'm just looking.
It's true because you don't always use a tea bag. Sometimes you just put it in, you strain it out. Like there's all these amazing ways.
But obviously, tea has evolved over time in terms of culturally evolved for people to put like marshmallows in tea bags and stuff.
Yeah,
to give it flavor.
Yeah.
There, I swear we have David's tea that has marshmallows in it.
I love that. That is so funny. I can just see the people at David's tea panicking, being like, throw some fucking marshmallows in it. I don't know. Candy cane, throw candy canes in it. Like, just panicking.
Good choice. That was such a boom. The tea boom. You remember like when David's tea became popular, and then it was like Teopia and all these other companies started. I was like, why is everyone obsessed? And they'd be like, we went to East Asia and learned about tea and are bringing these back into our culture. Like it was like exoticized. Do you not remember?
Yes, I remember. I'm like laughing because I'm like,
this is the Amazonian tea with these berries. I know, not goji berries, but it was like they always would have these different things that were like, and in this local mountain of wherever they have these crazy leaves that cure you, and we put them in our David's tea.
And it's like, okay, it's so weird because you'd think it'd be like this like brown and green and earthy vibe. You walk in, it's the most sterile hospital vibe. It's
very
like
Apple. They followed the Apple model.
Yeah, but I'm like, it's like kind of a disconnect when you're when they go, oh, they grab the bin like violently. They're like, oh, here. Then they open. They go, oh, this one comes from the region of front, and they start like, I'm like, this is like not what I want.
Doesn't feel like that earthy.
Yeah.
At least
Teopia at least had like I never went in one, but like the branding was more like earthy. I also like the way you described Teopia as a panic because it definitely was like a reaction. They're like, we need to open a Teopia.
Suddenly tea stores were opening everywhere. I just remember it was like 2009 or something. Suddenly everywhere there was a David's tea, and then all these weird competing companies.
And I weirdly fell for it. Like I was so young and dumb that I was like, I would panic for a gift. I'd be like, oh, David's tea.
Yeah, and then there'd be those news reports. They'd be like, this generation is turning to tea instead of coffee.
But really, everyone was panicking and didn't know what to buy. And it was like actually designed well, lit like a sterile office building. And I was like, I guess I'll get my tea there.
So I mean, the Queen really was ahead of that trend. But just with Earl
and I
Grey,
do think of the Queen when I think of like having a Earl Grey tea. Like she really copped that branding, and I don't know if ever in my life I won't think of the Queen when I have an Earl Grey tea.
We'll be in our 90s telling our grandkids there was a queen who used to drink this tea.
And they'll be like, what's a queen? And we'll be like, oh, there was this thing called the Monarchy, and they were inbred, not hemophilia.
And they'll be like, when you lived when there was no pandemic.
Yeah.
And we'll be like, yeah, that's really sad. Okay. I'm sorry if I stole that joke from you. You said it once before. And I thought it was
Oh my God, that's so. I was literally just thinking. I was like, does he did he just steal my joke?
I was like, if you're not gonna say it, I'm gonna say it.
That's so interesting. Oh my God, but what just like I'm actually like now like what just went through your head? Like you were just because I was trying to think of things too, and then I was like, well, I'm trying to not say the thing I like, just said on that like weird Instagram. And I'm like,
Oh, why?
That's so no. I'm like, you're right. I should have
figured
just been like,
you already put it out.
oh, they're all
there.
CRISPR-Cas9 gene. Like I should have just been like, yeah, they have CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing, and they're looking at us and they're like, I'm married to an algorithm. We don't know what you're talking
Bro,
about.
I'm not a comic. I can steal jokes with no shame
No, but you are.
because it's not my job. It's not my career. I'm
You
like,
are a
go for it.
comic.
No, I'm not.
You
No,
are
no,
a comic. You make me laugh.
I actually don't.
You do. Like, that sometimes you don't. And I get like I'm secretly sensitive. Secretly sensitive. And so sometimes Mitch will like crack a joke, and I'll be like, "Are you serious?" And then he'll be like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I did not know." So like you are a comedian. It's just sometimes I'm secretly sensitive, and I can't take your joke.
Do you think the monarchy should Canada secede from the Commonwealth?
Yeah. What for sure?
Yeah, you just are like get rid of it all. What's the point?
Oh my God, that's a separate question. Get rid of it all.
I mean, I guess I don't know the intricacies of it, how it
I'm just like
interplays with
colonization.
British
Okay, we all know there's one thing we've learned from history is that colonization and the British conquest is not working. It's like they spread their capitalism. They were all overpopulated and gross, and they were like, "Oh fuck, we need to get out of here. We need more resources." So they took over the world. Then we got capitalism, and then now we're in climate change due to capitalism. I'm like, no, yeah, we need to not look up to this British royalty. We need to find some other ways of life that don't involve what is quintessentially the monarchy, which to me is like, like white British capitalism.
It's interesting that America did it. They were like, no. We don't want to be part of this.
But
anymore.
they stayed in the same route. They're like, oh, we're actually going to be capitalism on drugs. Like
sure,
they took all the
but
horrible parts
they
of colonization.
pushed away from the monarchy.
Yeah. So when I
had
say like
independence.
when I say like I'm using the anti-monarchy that I have to still am an
Anti-capitalist.
anti-monarchist to be more anti-capitalist, anti-establishment, capitalism into like climate change.
Well, at least capitalism can survive under democracy. I'm not saying that there's not some like messed up displays, but like a monarchy is usually when the one person has like unilateral power. isn't it?
And it was interesting.
Obviously, it's changed. Like in
Yeah.
England, like she no longer has that same power. But
Yeah,
don't
like they took the power out.
and
That's what
same
the
in
crown's
Canada.
about.
It's like
Yeah,
she
yeah.
mostly is symbolic.
Yeah, we have a symbolic like
Which I'm fine with, to be honest.
Yeah. I
don't
guess
know.
it's like whatever. Go take a meeting and like talk to like students at a high school. and
I'm
then they're
sure
like,
someone
"We
could
met."
easily convince me to be like actively against it. I'm sure it wastes
Yeah.
so much money in all these ways that we don't realize.
Yeah, the governor general probably has like
Yeah.
an epic car service
Yes,
that
and
is
just
like,
like flies private. Who knows?
yeah, probably a lot. But like also remember like Canadians don't really care about the governor general. Sorry, hate to say it, but like they don't. Sorry, CBC, but we don't care about the governor general. I mean, literally, a few people are probably upset I said that, but like. There's like a governor general in Canada right now that like every time we watch the news they're like she's evil and like
Oh, yeah. Well,
everyone's
she
like
just
she's
quit or had to-
abusive and
Yeah,
like I
it's
was
really
like
bad.
our like elected version of the queen is like some evil person who's like
Was it her?
mean to her
Oh.
mean to her like assistants who like try and do her social
Yeah.
media
Or just to everyone she had to work with.
yeah I know I'm like okay wow
Like
you
a
missed-
culture of abuse is what they called it.
Exactly. It's like if you're at least gonna like elect the Queen of Canada, like find an epic good person. It doesn't seem like it'd be that hard to find someone who's like, I don't know, outstanding.
Like nice.
Yeah. Anyways, I digress.
Man, well, I'm curious if people think. I mean, obviously, our science had nothing to do with like whether the monarchy should be existing.
But
or not.
but in the end, that's where we ended up, and I say no.
Yeah, I say no as well. What's the point? Someone can convince us though.
Yeah.
Let us know if you
Let
think
us
it
know
should-
at-
if there are legitimate reasons that someone would say no, keeping the
Yeah.
monarchy actually helps this, and this.
I actually want to know that so bad.
Yeah, and not in like an angry way, more
No,
no,
like- and,
educate
like,
us. There,
teach
there
me.
might be somebody who's like, no, here's the legitimate reason why, even as Canadians, it's worth being part of the Commonwealth.
My
still.
parents always said weirdly tourism like to London.
is what
like,
cheaper.
like would be no the reason why it's like you don't realize how valuable their establishment is to get people from around the world to go and spend money in their country.
But what does that have to do with Canadian? You mean as like British people?
Yeah,
would
or
be
just
like, this
or as a
actually helps
reason,
our
why the
economies,
monarchy is like a
brings
net positive.
attention to England.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I mean, and I've heard as Canadians and Australians, like being part of the Commonwealth, it's often easier to get working visas and to travel between countries because there's like understanding. So let us know what are
But that
those
seems
things.
so weird. It's like,
yeah,
I
it
can
seems like
go there for
we
a
can
year
travel
and work.
anywhere else. Also,
Yeah. Like it's like the whole world.
save
can
$30
go.
on a visa.
Yeah, is that really all our connections are? Because that's a loose connection.
They're like, no, it's so good. The Queen's
Yeah.
like, no, don't leave. I'll save you $30 on entering our country. It's like, oh my God, okay. We don't know anything about this. Clearly. Thank you so much for listening. Yeah. Anything else on the monarchy, Greg?
Nope, we're good. Thanks so much. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like
Follow
leave the
Sidenote.
comment.
Yeah,
What
I
is
read
it?
all the comments
Write
on
the
YouTube
comment.
or Twitter.
Oh,
or
yes.
anywhere.
Okay.
Write the comments. Leave us. We haven't talked about reviews. Maybe one day we'll do Comment Corner again soon. And I saw someone commenting on our YouTube being like, I wanted to get on Comment Corner for so bad.
Oh,
I didn't know how. So
shit.
maybe we'll bring that back.
Okay,
soon.
we will. We will. It's
honestly,
like really not that hard. We should just do it.
and we appreciate all the comments and nice
Yeah.
things you guys say. And, educate us on the monarchy if you want. We're ready. All right. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Peace.